So I have a love-hate relationship with statistics. I have a love-hate relationship with statistics is because sometimes it's fun to quote something that's a statistic to get people to think, but then that statistic might not be true locally. So we could talk about American statistics, but they not be true here amongst us. But I think the statistic that I'm going to quote this morning is actually kind of true everywhere nowadays. Even if it's not here so much, we're certainly impacted by the nation that we live in. But right now, there is a crisis of intimate friendships in our nation. A crisis of people being able to intimately engage with one another. One of the reasons is because we live in an over-sexualized society. So when we begin to talk about intimacy, we think that intimacy is something physical, rather than your soul and your spirit, that you're actually sharing who you are. In the garden, Adam and Eve were naked and unashamed, and we read that text and we think it only means that they were physically naked. It actually means that they could see each other fully, and they were not ashamed of who they are. This is what Jesus Christ is restoring to you through your redemption and your reconciliation, that he's forgiving you and he's taking away your shame and your guilt so that you can stand in a community and be fully accepted and fully loved because of what he has done for us, so we don't have to hide things from one another anymore. Part of the statistic says that most Americans exhibit the kind of emotional angst that prisoners in solitary confinement exhibit. And that's because they feel so alone. So we may know of each other, but do we really know each other? Or do you have enough friends, and it's hard to have enough friends, but do you have enough friends that you could just lay out your whole heart in front of them and they would do nothing more than listen? They wouldn't come up with a solution. They wouldn't try to get you to fix it. They wouldn't put a finger out in your chest and say, well, you're to blame for this. You've made some bad decisions in the past. The kind of friend who would just sit with you and carry you through dark and difficult trials. We expect our families to do that, but here's the crazy part. Sometimes it's our families that have wounded us. Sometimes it's our families who are the problem. We need to find a space where there's healing. My solution this morning is going to say that there's healing in worship. But it's a little bit more sophisticated than that. I can go on anecdotally about this, so I'll just tell you one. I graduated from the Naval Academy in 1985. Many of my classmates are beginning to retire. Many of my classmates left the Navy and went into industry and made lots and lots of money. And now they get to pick wherever they want to live, and they get to move to wherever they can afford a house, which is most places in America, and live off the fat that they have stored up over all these years. And often, some of them will call me and ask for me for advice because they know I'm in the ministry and they making a life decision about where they should go. Sometimes when they've switched careers, they've called me and asked this question. Like, I'm in Jacksonville, Florida, but I want to move out to San Francisco, California. Now, first of all, there's a totally different issue there. My comment to them has always been, do you have a good church where you are? Oh yeah, we're in a good church. How about your kids? Are they in school and they feel comfortable and safe and they're being raised in the fear and the admonition of the Lord? And there's a good community surrounding them? Yeah, we have all that. How about your wife? Is she connected to a lot of ladies in the community? Oh yeah, she's connected to a lot of ladies. She has friends. I said, so what's going to happen when you move all the way across the country? How do you know there's a good church there? How do you know there's a community of people that will receive you and be able to give you what you really want? And the response is always, but the pay is so much better. The money is so much better. And here is one of the problems with our nation right now. We are so successfully materially that we think that material success is success. And to not have friends and to not have loving and abiding family seems to be a secondary issue to a lot of the decisions we make. And we get wounded to the point, or we get jaded to the point, that we think those relationships aren't even possible. So what we do is we just chase the money. You know, friendships are hard, beloved. Good friendships are hard. The scriptures say that the wounds of a friend are better than the kisses of an enemy. A true friendship involves wounding. What that proverb doesn't totally say, and we know from the scriptures elsewhere, is that friends are the ones that help us heal our wounds too. But do you have the kind of friends that can say the insightful, incisive things that would really hurt, but they have a desire for you that's better than what you're living in the moment? Because I tell you that the enemies will just kiss you and kiss you and kiss you, and when you get to the end of the rope, abandon you. And all that sort of false expectation will just vanish like a vapor, and you will be totally alone. And so loneliness is hard, and friendships are hard. Pick your hard. Pick your hard. Now, the heart of friendships is up front. The heart of loneliness is on the other end. In other words, you're sitting there going, what would cause me to have the startup energy to actually engage in a friendship? I have to risk exposing myself. I have to risk getting rejected. I have to risk multiple numbers of things. It just seems so easy to lean back. But friendships are a risk. Jesus gave himself, in a sense, as a risk. There's no guarantee that anybody would receive Jesus, even though he offered friendship to everyone. So I'm sitting here describing the water, and some people are drowning. And it's not helpful to just describe it. We need to find what will buoy us up to the surface, what will float us. And I'm going to say today it's worship. And the Lord said to Moses, cut for yourself 2 tablets of stone like the first. What do you mean like the first? Well, this is a part of an ongoing narrative. See, what happened was Moses went up the mountain to get the words of God, the words of deliverance, the words of salvation, the words of, we're going to make this whole world new. And when he got down the hill, he had been gone for 40 days, and the Jews at the bottom of the hill were missing Moses, so they turned to Aaron and said, make for us a god. And they made a golden calf. And then they said, not, this is the God who brought us out of Egypt. This is the gods who brought us out of Egypt. A complete rejection of the first commandment, you shall have no other gods besides me, and a complete rejection of the second commandment, which was, you shall not make for yourself an idol. And so Moses gets down the hill, and he goes berserk, and he breaks the tablets. Moses, we were going to need those. Those words are still true. God's program's not changing. The character that he expects out of everyone is the same. But Moses broke the tablets. And so now you have Moses as God's representative doing the one thing that he should not have done. He should have sent them down gently and then done something, but he should have never broke the tablets. So there's a little rebuke going on here. But in between the breaking of those tablets and him cutting 2 new ones, we got the story of the Lord saying to Moses, I'm done with these people. I'm going to make you a great nation, Moses. I'm going to cause you to be the one who's going to multiply and enter into the land and be great. And Moses is like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Now this is really a test for Moses. And Moses goes back to the promises made to Abraham and Isaac and Jacob. And he says, wait a minute, Lord, what are the Egyptians going to say that you could deliver them out of Egypt, but you couldn't carry them to the land? It's going to be bad on your reputation. Now, God knows this. And let me tell you something. Jesus was crucified naked on a cross. God is not afraid of public embarrassment. God is not afraid of showing who he truly is to us. God is not afraid of intimacy. You can get close to God. And so the Lord is not really concerned that he's going to look bad in the eyes of the Egyptians. Later, he lets the Babylonians destroy his temple in Jerusalem. So God is not about PR. God is not about always keeping a good public face. God is about getting to the core of what's real and what's necessary. And so Moses, after interacting with the Lord in this conversation, God says, okay, I am going to send you guys to Canaan, only I'm not going to go with you. I'll send an angel in front of you, and the angel will take care of everybody who's in Canaan. That angel will drive out the Hivites and the Jebusites and the Canaanites. It's going to drive all them out in front of you, but I'm not going. And when that word hit the streets, all of Israel started wailing. They all started crying, wait a minute. We can't go unless you're in our midst. We can't go unless you're close to us. We can't go unless you're leading us. It's a promise I'll get you there, but we want you directly with us. And so here's the interesting question. How much church can we do without God? Have you ever thought about how central God is to anything that we're doing, or we just kind of do the same thing over and over and over? I mean, so literally, I'm with you, God. I'm like directing you, God. I'm like talking to you, God. I'm like, you're listening to me, God. And he seems like he's real here. There's a famous old evangelist named John Brown. There's a university named after him now, John Brown. And they used to say about John Brown, the atheists used to say, I hate that John Brown because he talks like Jesus is right at his elbow all the time. Like Jesus is even real in the room. That's the way John Brown talks. And that's the way our church ought to be, is like Jesus is alive and walking and moving amongst us. Actively moving, healing, mending, restoring, giving people a new way because they've lost their way. And they sense his presence. We sense his presence. And so the Israelites are like, we need you to go with us. And so then something really strange happens. The Lord says to Moses, okay, I'll go with you. You need to cut out 2 more tablets, just like the tablets at first. And so there's kind of a joke there, like the ones you broke. Did you see that in verse 1? I'll write on the tablets the words that were on the first tablets that you broke. Okay, Moses, don't be breaking the tablets, all right? Be ready in the morning and come up in the morning to Mount Sinai and present yourself there to me on the top of the mountain. No one shall come with you, and let no one be seen throughout all the mountain. Let no flocks or herds graze opposite that mountain. And here's what's going on here. Why is it only Moses? It's because this is a covenant renewal ceremony. Because God had made a covenant with them, and they violated the first covenant, so it was now null and void unless God decided to not execute the fine print of the covenant, which was, you're not my people anymore. But God being gracious, God being loving, God being forgiving, says, okay, we'll do this with a new covenant, Only now, only one person can come up. Because before the Lord in Exodus 19 had spoken to all of them, before the Lord had invited 70 elders up, before the Lord was kind of working through a group, now he's only working through one. You understand this because of the New Testament, right? That the covenant that God has with us is through one person. That person is Jesus of Nazareth. And because of his faithfulness, we can be saved. Because of his covenant loyalty, we can be saved. That the work, that the revelation, all of that has been taken away from us and given to one who is faithful, to one who won't break the covenant, to one who won't get overly angry at us, to one who will love us at all times. And so God is setting that idea up right here with Moses in saying only one can come up. And the reason you can't graze your fields opposite there is because somebody else could say, well, I was up on the mountain and this is what I heard. I was up on the mountain and I don't think Moses got it right. So we don't need confusion like that. We just need a clear word from God. And so we're going to send one person up, and Moses is going to come down, and he's going to give the one clear word. And for those of you who like to read the Gospels, how many times did Jesus go up to a mountain to pray? How many times did it just casually say he took off to go up to a mountain to pray? That is an image of what's going on here. As Moses goes up there. Now the word is, go up there and take a stand. So Moses gets up there and goes and takes a stand. And he's standing there with 2 tablets, which don't have anything written on them. They're just stone tablets. So he's working on his right bicep and he's working on his left bicep. Probably some of his back muscles too. So Moses cut 2 tablets of stone like the first, and he rose early in the morning and he went up to Mount Sinai. And as the Lord had commanded him, he took in his hand the 2 tablets of stone. The Lord descended in a cloud and, same word, stood with him. Isn't that beautiful? There's Moses standing there holding 2 tablets, and the Lord stands with him. And rather than writing on the tablets, what does the Lord do? He says, this is what I'm about. This is who I am. This is the intimacy that you're looking for. This is the well of all goodness. The Lord, a God merciful and gracious, slow to anger, and abounding in steadfast love and faithfulness. See, beloved, we will never enter into intimate relationships unless we believe that we can drink from that well. That there is a source of goodness. There's a source of graciousness and kindness and mercy and covenant loyalty and faithfulness and slow anger, so that when you finally expose yourself, that when you finally take the risk, that there will be a safe place for you. That there'll be a spot where you don't have to defend, you don't have to pretend, that you can be just who you are. Because let me tell you who the Israelites are, a stiff-necked, stubborn people who had just blown the top 2 commandments. Don't you want to every once in a while say, I think we Americans would have done better? Why didn't he start with the Americans? I think we would have done better with this stuff than these Israelites. They were always running around disobeying, but we're pretty awesome. In history, we would have done way better. Why didn't he start with us? Or maybe you come from the Irish or the Scots, the Germans. I think we would have done better than the Israelites. I mean, these guys are just like loaded with failure. I think that's why God starts with them. Let me put the furthest at the edge, the furthest at the extremity, the furthest people that could ever even conceptually begin to respond and obey, and I'm going to work with them. And you just wait to see what I do with them when I'm done. When I'm done, they will be some of the most beautiful, intelligent, wise, wonderful people that ever walked the planet. And that's us because we serve the same God. And so for you to be able to enter into these kinds of relationships, you have to believe that this is even a possibility. So when Carl and I do premarital counseling, this isn't necessarily scriptural, but it's certainly helpful to think through. We say that every relationship has the potential of 4 stages. 4 stages. The first stage is the honeymoon stage. Like, there's no reason why me walking down the streets of, let's say, New Tripoli or street of New Tripoli or Fogelsville, that somebody would look at me and go, now there's a guy I want to be friends with. Like, I'm just walking along and they would go, now that guy looks like someone who'd be a faithful and a loyal friend. I think I'm going to walk up to him and try to befriend him. There's got to be some sort of startup energy, and that's what honeymoon energy is that you enter into a relationship and you meet someone and you think, this is going to be the best ever. Because you're not living in reality. It's the honeymoon stage. So we tell young couples, when I was younger, I was just bold and confident and a decision maker, and my wife loved the fact that I would take charge and be decisive. And then after we got married, she thought that same trait was domineering monster. It's because I was just like bossing all the time. That's the way it's going to be. And when I met her, she was a beautiful young Southern lady who was just compliant and following me. And I was like, yes, she's wise. And then after a while, I really wanted to know her opinion. And she would say to me, well, I'm just trying to figure out what you want. And I'm going, what I'm telling you right now is I want to know what you want. She's like, oh, this is a trick. I don't know if that ever happened in your marriage, but it took us years to work through that. I'm not sure if we're there yet. I'm getting amens from the pews. Let's be down south again. Honeymoon stage, rose-colored glasses. You think this is going to be the best that it ever could be. You come to Jacob's church and it's like, oh, wow, this place is amazing. And then you meet the pastor and you're like, what? What was I thinking? Next stage is the truth stage. The truth stage is when reality comes out. The truth stage is when you kind of take those rose-colored glasses off and you find out that everybody has feet of clay, that everybody has weaknesses, that everybody has wounds, that there's stories operating in people's lives from the past that make them respond to you in a particular way that you never did to them. You never hurt them, you never lied to them, but somebody like you lied to them. Somebody like you betrayed them. Somebody like you failed them in the past. And so they just project that onto you like you're going to do that. And you're sitting there responding to them going, I would never do that to you. But they think you might, so they guard themselves. And that's the truth stage. Most people in our culture hit the truth stage, don't like it, and go back to the honeymoon stage. They hit the truth stage, they go back to the honeymoon stage. They hit the truth stage, not with the same person, they go with someone else, or another church, or another community, or another job. And they go back and they go back, and then eventually some of them just harden their hearts and say it's not even possible. It's not even possible to have a good, deep, intimate relationship anymore. So I'm going to live in a box. I'm going to live in a self-protective box. And you know what? You'll be safe with the world's hardest heart. You'll be safe and protected, but you'll never know the joy of what it means to just fully give yourself and be loved and to love. To risk and to have someone say, I just love you because I love you. No performance necessary. No proof that you have to give to me. I'm just loved. This is Jesus of Nazareth. This is how he transforms people to make people like that. So the next stage then becomes the love stage. Because what you do is you look at those truths and you say, well, despite the fact that she or he may never change, I'm in a covenant relationship. I'm going to go to the end. I'm going to love beyond that which I find difficult. And this is what the scriptures call forbearing. We forbear with one another. Forbearance doesn't mean stay at a distance and just endure. Forbearance means to go through the barbed wire. Forbearance means to risk getting blown up by a mine as you go in. Forbearance means that I'm here for you, even though every once in a while when I come near you, you poke me in the eye or punch me in the nose. Because we believe at the well that we are drinking from, that there is an eternal God who always forgives. We believe there's an eternal God who always holds to covenant loyalty. We believe that there's an eternal God who is steadfast in all of his commitments, and that what he is doing through the resurrection of his son Jesus is transforming us into people like his son. And people like his son are not goody two-shoes. That's what people have reduced Jesus to, is just a goody two-shoes. No, Jesus of Nazareth is a relentless forgiver. Jesus of Nazareth is a relentless pursuer of sinners. Jesus of Nazareth is a steadfast, loyal friend who, no matter what you do, will not let you go. And that's the love stage. Now, I almost don't want to mention the fourth stage because people get to it so rarely in their lives that they don't even have a concept of what I'm going to talk about, but I'll mention it anyway. It's called the incarnational stage, where the relationship between you and someone else, whether it be a spouse or a child or just a friend, or even you and your job or you and your community, you and your nation, that relationship no longer is inwardly blessing, but outwardly blessing. That a really good marriage is about blessing the children. That a really good marriage is about being a model in the community that other people who are married would look at and say, I want that. How did you get there? That an incarnational church is one where people go, man, you guys look so perfect to me, but I can sit here with my brokenness and feel that I'm not being rejected. Because you seem to be transparent with one another. That as I've gotten in here closely with people, I find out that they have warts and mumps and measles like I got, and yet you're loved anyway. Beloved, this only is exposed in worship. As we keep repeating in song, as we keep repeating in praise, over and over and over, this is who you are. This is who you are. This, until it's such a fixture in our hearts that we say to ourselves, how can we be any different? This isn't a game. This isn't ceremonial stuff that we do. That we can sing a song like no one has ever sung before, being totally free, like birds in the spring. Because of the joy that is in us from being set free from the bondage of sin and death, which is called self-protection and self-deliverance. And so what God is looking at is for in us is intimacy. This is why before he writes on those tablets, he goes, let me tell you who I am. Let me just expose myself to you and tell you I'm full of steadfast love. I'm slow to anger. Covenant loyalty is what I do. We don't have a word in our language for chesed. The word is chesed. It means that I'm signing my name on the paper, and I'm expecting you to sign your name on the paper. But when you fail your covenant, I'm going to keep mine. When you blow it, I'm keeping my end. And here's the deal. He has to, because he's just, punish sin. It says here in the text, right? In no way I'm going to let those who hate me get away with it. And so now we're like, wait a minute. I thought grace just meant I could blow it all the time and God would invite me back, right? And there's no punishment ever. There's punishment. He is a holy God. He is a perfect God. He is a God of wrath. He is a God of anger. He's slow to it, but it's still there, right? So he waits, and he waits, and he waits. And he calls King David, and he calls King Solomon, and he calls King Rehoboam, and they all blow it. Hezekiah blows it. Jotham blows it. Ahaz blows it. Where am I going to find a king? And then Jesus of Nazareth comes, and he waits, and he waits, and he waits, and he pours out his wrath on the one person who has ever lived that always was a friend. He pours out his anger on the one person who never blew it. He burns essentially on the cross Jesus of Nazareth in our place so that all of our failings could be reversed and we be made new. And this is what he's saying in Exodus 34. But to them it was coming. For us it has come. And so now, not only do we have to believe that we can drink from that well, we have to have a will to do it. You got to take a risk. You're not going to get it by osmosis. You have to be active. You have to take control of your life. You are the only one that can exercise faith for you. You might embed yourself in a group of really loving people, but never truly be known by them. You might put yourself around goodness, but it doesn't rub off on us. It comes from within. God transforms people from within. And so that's our opportunity today, is to look at these really faithful covenant promises that God has made. That he desires you to be standing with him on the mountain, just like he called up Moses. Moses blew it. Jesus of Nazareth didn't. Israel blew it. We don't collectively as a people have to do that. All we have to do is to read the words of this book and take that kind of risk. Take that kind of step. And there's fear. Y'all know me, right? I'm like a bull in the china shop. I just crash in and start looking around and going, okay, it'll be fine. I'm an eternal optimist. Been stabbed, poked, pinched, cut, beaten, all those things because of my lack of wisdom in relationships, just assuming that everybody would just get it. But I keep coming back because I believe this is our God. You may never have tried that. Let me tell you, it's worth it. It is worth it to take the risk of friendship. It is worth it to take the risk of intimacy. Because when you are fully known and you are naked and unashamed, then you really know you're accepted. As we come to communion, I just want to remind you that communion is covenantal commitment. That every time we come to communion, one of the reasons we confess our sins is because we know we have the past that doesn't earn us a right at the table. Communion doesn't earn something for us. It's the second invite of God. It's the third invite of God. It's the 1,000th invite of God saying, come back. On my end, I'm keeping the bargain. On your end, come eat with me one more time because I'm faithful. Father in heaven, draw our hearts to this well. Father, salt our tongues so that we would drink from nothing but your goodness. So that we would stop drinking from the poison of this earth and from the lies of the evil one, and rather believe, even in our age, where friendships are so rare, that it's truly a possibility to be intimate not only with you, but with one another through the resurrection of our Savior and Lord Jesus Christ. Amen.